I'm trying to say so many things, but really one of the things I am trying to really do is like shed light on like self-harm and like why people are doing it. So like that, but that whole point is very important for people to be like, oh, someone understands me. Like even the people watching it who may be going through that themselves can really be like, oh wow, they understand. Like I'm not a freak. Like, you know what I mean?
Hey, my name is CC Weske, and I am the co-writer, director, producer of the film Out of the Quiet.
Monsters were never under my bed. They were always right beside it. They laid me down to sleep at night and bewitched me with the quiet. For far too long, my breath bowed every skeleton into the dust. My veins spilled of hot lithium until my tears began to rust. Now my bones will melt to marble ivory as the red, crimson quiet consumes me.
Scene 3, T, take 2.
The reason why this film, Out of the Quiet, is so special to me is honestly because of the real life connection I have to it. When I was a teenager, I went through a lot of similar things. I experienced a lot of similar feelings that the main character, Erin, does in Out of the Quiet. I suffered greatly from self-harm and suicidal thoughts and tendencies, and I struggled the same way she did for years in therapy. This has honestly just been something on my heart for a very long time. I think that there isn't a ton of information out there about this stuff, about self-harm. It's a really scary thing, and a lot of the times people just kind of tend to shy away from these things because they're uncomfortable and they're difficult, and I totally understand because that's exactly what I experienced too. I lost friends, and it took such a toll and a strain on my family and my relationships. This film is so much more than just being about self-harm or suicide. This film is about challenging you. This film is about challenging me. This film is about challenging all of us to know that there is another way. There is a way out of the situation that you're in. There is a way out of this turmoil, of this depression, out of this anxiety. There is a way out. There is more. And this film is not only to challenge the person that's in this situation and that's going through this difficult time like I was, it's to challenge the person who doesn't understand. It's really to challenge the person who might sit there and judge a person because of what they're going through and have never understood anything about them or what they're going through. And it's to challenge the person to not bury their head in the sand, and even though it's a difficult subject to be able to talk about and to have communication about, it's something that's so necessary, because turning our head and turning our eyes away from this situation is never going to help it, and it's never going to bring about healing, and it's never going to bring about moving forward so that all of us can move forward. Burying our head in the sand and not having these conversations is what's toxic. Not having those conversations and not understanding and not being willing to understand is partially why so many kids are wanting to commit suicide and hurting themselves, is because they're not heard and they don't feel like they belong. And that's exactly what this film is about, is hoping people can understand that they're not alone and helping them to feel like they belong somewhere and they're not heard, that they're heard and that they're understood and they're not in this by themselves. This world is full of a lot of confusion. This world is full of a lot of pain, and a lot of that is going on right in front of our very noses. And a lot of these things, a lot of these topics that we want to tell these stories, we want to talk about this stuff. And a lot of these things are difficult to talk about. I understand that. I understand what it's like to talk about difficult things. I understand that it's uncomfortable and brings about a lot of emotions, but I'm not afraid to go there, because guess what? The world needs it. The world needs to know, people need to know that they are understood and they're not overlooked and they are not some weird person if they're going through a hard time. I want people to know that you can get through these things and that there is a way, and it might not be anything you've ever heard of before. It might not be something you've ever even thought of before or considered, because people would tell you that you're crazy if you did that, or that's a fake thing. And I can tell you from experience, in the place that I thought the least likelihood of that place being where I would find truth and I would find life and I would find my strength, I found it. I realized that I have always been loved and that I've always been cared about, and now I feel the only way to ever pay back that love and that appreciation and that value that I have found in my relationship with God is to be able to show people that they can have that relationship too. And a lot of the times in the darkest places and most difficult places of our life, that's where God can come and speak to us. And if we're always focused on the happy and the happy endings, how are we ever supposed to connect people to God? So what we want to do is be able to meet people in their darkest places. Even though those places are often uncomfortable and difficult and painful sometimes to talk about, I'm willing to go there and tell those stories because you need to be heard, because your story needs to be talked about, because there's more to life than just being okay. Because a lot of the times it's not okay, and that's all right. So in closing, I just want to say thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch our film Out of the Quiet. If you haven't seen it yet, please feel free to go check it out. Give us some suggestions about things that you want to see be made. We want to hear from you guys. We want to know what stories you have to tell that are real stories in real people's lives that are really happening. Again, thank you so much for giving me a hearing and tuning in and checking all this stuff out. I really appreciate it. Would appreciate your support in any way that you feel called to support. So thank you very much.